Okay, thank you for coming. Let's make a start. My name is Chris O'Brien. I want to talk to you today about the wonder that is Power Automate Desktop. We've been using it a little bit to start to automate some of these really difficult client scenarios that other things in the Power Platform can't really work with. And I suppose some of the story that I'm telling today is how I use it in a battle that is sort of ever increasing in its intensity, that is happening in my house, actually, with my kids, and how these technologies that you can use at the workplace can also have wider impact, and perhaps thinking about automation across both work and home. Thank you, of course, to all of our sponsors. It's great to be here, isn't it? Isn't it great to be at an event and seeing people and actually listening to people in the flesh? Hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. I'm with Content and Cloud. We're one of the sponsors, really happy to support the event. And all of these companies have made a massive contribution to make this event what it is. So thank you to all of them. I am the Products and Services Director at Content and Cloud, which means that we do a lot of forward thinking, innovative thinking, hopefully, that tries to drive us forward. I really like this picture. I've been using it for years because it kind of depicts a wholesome family. I've got these, I'm biased of course, but slightly angelic-looking kids. My kids are identical twins, identical in the technical sense, but also in the sense that they're both a pain in my arse. And the reality, of course, is that this photo is actually from several years ago. What I've really got now is this, some moody pre-teenage kids, really, that never put their plate away, never care about the dishwasher or any of that. And my kids will game until the time runs out. Right? There are no limits to their appetite for this. So I need to put some controls in place. Now, what I was doing is restricting the time that they can do gaming. And the problem was that every day at 5 o'clock, I'd do something manual. I'd go onto Virgin Media's portal, and I'd unblock some websites. And I suppose the challenge that we got to is the service wasn't quite good enough. I'd constantly have notes shoved under the door at 5:10 because I hadn't unblocked the gaming in time. And I'd be presenting on a Teams call, and I'm getting knocks at the door. So this, I realized, was something that I wanted to automate. And it had real echoes of the kind of challenges that we have in the workplace. So, I thought it was a good excuse to try and bring some of the technologies that we use at work to this problem at home. So yeah, the kids very dissatisfied with the SLAs they were getting, constant complaints and escalations, and that's really what led me to look at this with Power Automate Desktop. Now, automation is a funny concept because, you know what, if you go and look at it, we've been trying to automate things since the beginning of time almost. The first mentions of automata are actually in Homer's Iliad, which goes back to 700 BC, machines that can move their own volition. And throughout history, we've tried to kind of take the repetitive nature out of things, try to automate, even if we're only sort of seeing this as automation is the future. The next 10 years of IT, it's about automate all of the things. Well, actually, we've been doing this for a long, long time, through the industrial ages, of course, right through to today. Microsoft made a big acquisition a few years ago, and that's really where they brought desktop automation into their portfolio. So I suppose it was a recognition that Power Platform was going great, lots of new tools and organic development, but really what Microsoft were recognizing is that they were falling behind in desktop automation. Lots of other great platforms out there, Automation Anywhere, UI Element, things like this, UiPath, that are really good, strong tools, and Microsoft needed to play as well. So what they did is acquire and bring this into the Power Platform in the form of Power Automate Desktop. So I'm going to flip back kind of between home and work, as it were. My home situation is, this is my Virgin Media's ISP portal. It's a great example of something that cannot be automated. There's no real scheduling. They don't give me a fancy mobile app. There's no API, perhaps, that I could bring my developer skills to. There's nothing of that nature. Instead, what I've got is a portal that was built in the 1990s by a student, I think. There is nothing sophisticated about this. And this is the kind of challenge that surely we see in the workplace as well. So I kind of used the image on the right, maybe that takes you back as some nostalgia. But look, there are many applications like this, aren't they? That maybe it's a desktop app of some kind. Lots of the clients I work with, their HR app, their billing app, their partner time recording app, some of their finance apps, they're installed on desktop machines. They don't have an API, they can't be automated. It's not a modern web interface that's a SaaS platform of sorts with maybe OAuth authentication and a REST API for somebody to plug into, or a Power Platform connector. There's none of that. And we see this quite a lot, and some of the solutions that we're automating at work with Power Automate Desktop sort of fall into these categories. Back to home, the process that I really wanted was sort of something automated. It's going to run on a schedule. And my schedule is 5 o'clock, it unblocks the websites, the kids get an hour of gaming, it goes to Virgin Media's website. It needs to do what I do, which is, there are 2 URLs in particular that I want to block, Roblox and Scratch. These are the 2 of the places that my kids will just spend endless time on. And I want to unblock at 5 o'clock, and to avoid the knocks on the door and pieces of paper being slid under my door, I want to announce it to Alexa downstairs so that they know that it's worked, the gaming is open, and nobody's going to be bothering me while I'm on a Teams call. And then, they've got an hour, and then the reverse happens. So another process goes to Virgin Media, blocks it, tells them downstairs that it's now blocked. Now, Power Automate Desktop. So I'm interested, has anybody spent time in Power Automate Desktop? So a few. And it's interesting because it's kind of slightly off to the side of the Power Platform. So I'm not surprised that not everybody has spent time on it. But understand that it's going to become a lot more prevalent. Microsoft are going to bundle this free in Windows 11. Their big play is to get it into everybody's hands. They don't want to provide a charging mechanism. It's going to be free. And you can do all sorts with it. The model is essentially that you record the process that you want to automate. And that's the thing that makes it easy, the kind of thing that, if I can do it, anybody can. There is also the ability to drag and drop actions from the toolbox. So it's this combined thing. You'll record what you can. If something isn't quite perfect, then you can almost edit in a designer. It's not the flow designer, it's something slightly different, but similar concept. And you can select from a big old toolbox that's got lots and lots of things in. And you can perhaps add something onto the end or the beginning of your process that maybe you weren't able to record. In terms of what you can do, and of course, you can see this in Power Automate Desktop if you have it installed, but all of this will be in the slides if you want to grab them later. You can do all sorts. So you can control the PC. This is the beauty. So if you've ever built a flow, you're kind of in the cloud world. You're used to being able to connect to systems and perhaps being able to select from a relatively wide range of actions. But with desktop automation, you are automating the computer, the PC. So you can send something to a printer. You can take a screenshot, which is quite powerful. So you're automating the process. You've perhaps log something in the HR app or the CRM app, and maybe you want to take a screenshot of exactly what happened. You can lock the workstation or sort of ping another machine and just check for network connectivity. You can do many of the things that a human can do at the PC. Create files, create folders, maybe add a line to Excel every time you run. All of these things are within reach. The main areas, though, are probably web automation and UI automation. So web automation is, open a browser, go to this website, fill out this form, go through these controls on the form, whether they're text boxes or drop downs or date pickers. record all those things. And UI automation is something similar, but for desktop apps, Windows apps that are installed on the machine. Okay, so let's take a look at how this is, what this looks like. So this might be a little bit small in places. Now I have Power Automate Desktop installed. This is what you're seeing here. And what I'm going to do is create a flow. I name it Block Kids Gaming. You can see I've got a couple of ones already installed, already pre-made. But really what I'm going to do is use Power Automate Desktop to record the actions that I was taking every day myself. So I've got my URL handy for Virgin Media. I open Chrome. Now there's an interesting thing here. Put your hands up if you use Microsoft Edge as your browser these days. Yeah, most of us, me too. Chrome automates much better today with Power Automate Desktop than Microsoft Edge. So if you start doing this, try and remember to use Chrome for now. So I have the recorder. You see this thing that's popped up on the right-hand side? And it's recording all of the steps. So I'm now in the Virgin Media portal. Notice what is happening here. It can identify things in the structure of the page. It's interrogating the DOM, the document object model, behind the page. So I'm entering roblox.com into the text box, and it understands exactly what that element is, and it's capturing all of these steps that I'm doing. I hit apply. You see more and more steps build up on the right-hand side in the recorded steps. And I close the browser. Now, what will happen is it's captured all of those steps, and this is the equivalent of the Flow Designer, if you like. So this is what it looks like in Power Automate Desktop. I've got my toolkit, my toolbox on the left, and I've got all these steps, and I've now saved them. Now, there are a couple of things that I need to do here. So I did close the browser, but that doesn't get captured. So what I'm going to do is drag on a close web browser action. It's got a variable in there of %browser%, and that's basically saying, I know which browser you're talking about. I detect a browser in these steps, and it's probably that one that I want to close. So it doesn't go off and close some other browser that happens to be open on the machine. It knows the one that was used. So we've got the steps captured, and what we need to do now is test. Logically, for me to be able to test this, I actually need to take out those URLs so that I can run my test from the beginning. I need clean state, if you like, because otherwise, if I try to run it at the moment, Virgin Media is probably going to complain, well, you've already got those URLs in there, so I'm tidying them up. And now we should be in a position to run. So the flow is now running. It fires up Chrome. It goes to the right URL. If I just maximize this, you see that it's doing exactly what I did. It's putting the things in the text box. It's hitting save. It's then hitting apply and closing the browser. So that's it. So, recording a process like that takes maybe a couple of minutes. I've now got the process, and I've got my automation. So I've got it going one way. I'll need to come back and do something that's the reverse to unblock. I need block and unblock, so I do need the reverse. But essentially, that's sort of the simple fun bit of recording the process. Now, probably the thing to understand at this point in terms of where we are is we do have the automated process. But at this point, it only lives in Power Automate Desktop. Right? So it lives on my machine, my Surface Pro here, and it doesn't live anywhere else. If I want to run it, I have to click the button. Now that's still a couple of leagues better than what I was doing, which was doing all this shenanigans at 5 o'clock, but I would still need to hit the button, hit it once at 5 and hit a different one at 6 o'clock. It needs to be manually triggered. And all of those URLs I was using, they were kind of hard-coded. It might be nice to tidy this up and make it a bit more reusable. Maybe I want to use different URLs in the future. Maybe a nice enhancement would be, take any number of URLs and just bash them all into the portal. So there's things like this that you'd want to get to. And I haven't dealt with any of the other steps yet, so there's nothing about Alexa so far. And I also want some kind of notification myself, because I don't have an Alexa in my sort of bedroom, office room that I'm in, so I kind of need to know as well. So there's a few things we need to build around this. So let's think about automating Alexa then. So this is an interesting area. Put your hand up if you've ever done any home automation with Alexa. So somebody wants to shout out what you've done? Right. On a schedule or by commanding Alexa? Right. Nice. It's a whole world of fun, isn't it? Now, what I found is I just wanted to make Alexa make an announcement, and I thought that would be relatively straightforward. And for a while, I was using something called Alexa notifications. But what that does is the device beeps, and then somebody has to say, Alexa, read me my notifications. And that's no good. The kids are not going to do this. I just need something to shout out in the room that they're in. And to do this, what you actually need is a routine. So Alexa notifications are no good because you have to pull them. For a routine, you get to make a direct announcement. So that's the kind of thing that we need. It's a little bit tricky in a way. And I see that the colours don't really come out on this screen, but there are basically 4 steps. The best way to automate an Alexa routine, there's a service on the internet called virtualbuttons.com. This allows you to almost put an API on the front of your Alexa, but an API that's very simple to use. So I signed up for virtualbuttons.com. They give you an access code. And now what you need to do is in the Alexa app on your device, whatever that is, iPhone, iPad, Android, whatever it might be, you create a routine, and the trigger is a virtual button, this thing that you signed up for. And then once you have that, you basically have something that's callable from the internet. So now I can make a call from anything, a flow in a normal Power Automate or a desktop flow, and it can talk to my Alexa, it can command my Alexa remotely. The steps, and this is probably more of a reference slide, but if ever anybody wants to do this, you essentially have a desktop flow with a PowerShell step, and you use PowerShell to call virtual buttons. So if you've ever done any PowerShell scripting, there's something called invoke REST method, which is make a call to this endpoint on the internet. And that, I think, is the simplest way to automate Alexa in this approach. You basically get an ID for every virtual button that you create. It's a free service if you only have one virtual button. My problem is I needed 2. I need to block and unblock. So I'm actually in their sort of pay for chargeable model. It's 50p a month. Right? Now, for me, I am more than happy with that. That is a cost that the cost center can bear. So, just to give you a sense of what automating Alexa looks like. And again, this is one of those things that when you've done it once, you don't really need to do it again. So I'm in my phone here. I create a new routine, and my routine is something like announce that gaming is blocked or something like that. And it's going to say what should happen at this point and what's the trigger. And it's detected because I've previously made a connection to my virtual buttons account. It's connected that there are 2 triggers there, and I'll just say, I'll use 1 or I'll use 2, and I'll remember which one is which. And then I can actually get Alexa to do all sorts of things. I can pick a predefined message, or I can add something to a shopping list, or schedule something in a calendar. What I want to do is just make an announcement. So I'm typing in exactly what I want Alexa to announce. Okay, so I have my routine. I pick which device it should respond from. I've got view around the house, and that should help me get that far. Now the next step is effectively moving this so that I can sort of call it in the way that I need to. Now there's another step here, which is we've got that. So I've kind of got my front end onto Alexa, but what I really need is to be able to call it from my flow. So I've got this virtual buttons endpoint. This is Postman, if you've ever used this. This is a developer tool that you'll often use to test calling an endpoint. And what I want to do here is just check before I start to put anything any. So that was actually the Alexa in the room behind me, right? So I've now tested that I can call this from outside. So calling it from Postman works. So I seem to have the Alexa bit sorted. Now it's thinking about how do I call this from Power Automate Desktop. And I said what you can do is use a bit of PowerShell and invoke REST method. And I'm basically setting this up now. So I'm warming myself up for integrating this into my end-to-end flow. And again, if I just have a single step here and run this. So there you go. You know, it's captured it from, and that's coming out of the surface here. So now I know that I can automate Alexa, and I've got a step maybe that I could plug into to a longer flow. Okay. Now the thing is, we said that we were kind of still stuck in desktop mode. We've got the process, we've got some automation, we're starting to put the things in place for announcing downstairs on the Alexa. But really, we are just on the desktop, and I would have to press that at 5 o'clock. And that's not really what I want. What I really want to do is schedule this thing. And here's where kind of the worlds collide of Power Automate Desktop and normal Power Automate that you're used to. What you can do is create a normal flow in regular Power Automate, and you can pick whether you want a scheduled flow or an instant flow that you're going to trigger from something else. With instant, of course, you could trigger from anything in Microsoft 365, maybe an email landing in an inbox or an item being added to a SharePoint list or to Dataverse. Any of those things you could use as your trigger. And what happens is that flow that's in the cloud, the regular type of flow, can call down to your desktop flow. And what's actually happening is you've got flow in the cloud, it's calling through a connector to my machine, my Surface Pro, that's in my house or whatever it happens to be. And you can essentially wrap a desktop flow with a cloud flow. So there's a couple of strange concepts in here, if you like. So let's just sort of final demo. Let's go and take a look at this. So I have my my desktop flow. Now there's a couple of tidy up pieces that I want to do first. So if you remember, I had my my Alexa automation step, but that was a single step on its own in another flow. And what I want to do is copy and paste that. So I can, anything that I've got somewhere else, I can copy an action from one desktop flow to another. You don't have to rebuild them. And I'm going to put this into my sort of end-to-end automation flow. So I'll paste it at the bottom. And we should make this a bit more grown up. So there are all sorts of things that you can do in desktop flows, just like in cloud flows, with variables. So I said that all of the things I was using were kind of hard-coded in the flow. My Alexa has an access code. That's how it authenticates how I can talk to my Alexa and not yours. I've also got the URLs, which were sort of hard-coded in there, and maybe I should pull those out. So you can see, if you can look closely enough, that I've got things like roblox.com in there. And if we parameterize these, we make the thing more flexible, so I don't have to come back in here and edit in the future. It's just going to take in whatever was fed as a parameter. So some steps to make this a little bit more mature, make this a little bit more reusable. And my goal really is to just not have to touch this thing again. So I've genericized those. They are now bad URL 1 and bad URL 2. Those are the simple URLs. And yeah, I will take those things out and just use my variables. So I now have my end-to-end flow. I'll just fix up that final one. And now the step is really around taking this to the cloud so it can be scheduled, so it can be automated, so I don't have to come into Power Automate Desktop and press the button. And now I think my desktop flow is ready for that. It's parameterized, it can have things passed through to it, and it's going to process whatever is passed. What I would do now is go to normal flow in the browser, the flow portal. And the step here is basically to create a new flow and get it to talk to my desktop flow on my machine. Now this is pretty simple, so if you've created a flow before, it's just the usual steps. I'm doing one on a schedule. So say block for gaming. I need this to run at 5 o'clock every day. That's when the gates are opened. And here is the kind of the magic step that glues things together. So you add a step in flow, you get these. So there are Power Automate desktop connectors. Notice that it was premium there, so we'll come back to that in a second. But it detects the flows that you built on your desktop. So you just pick them from a drop-down list. You have some things to populate here. So this is now where I'm specifying my parameters. So this is somewhere where I'm more likely to go and edit, and it's a bit more controllable. That is my Amazon Alexa access code, but you'll be pleased to know I've changed it just in case anybody's bright enough to take a photo of that and try and tell my kids things. Although if you do want to tell them to tidy up, that's fine by me. And then what I want to do is send me a mobile notification just as some verification to me that things have happened. And this is the kind of thing I can do in regular flow. You know, I've got all of the toolkit that's available to me in Cloud Flows, and I can build whatever I want around the desktop flow process. So now I'm testing. Again, the browser fires up. You know, the challenge sometimes is it all happens too fast for you to realize. If you're trying to test it or you're watching what happens, it performs the steps 10 times faster than you would as a human, which is fine when everything is running. But just be aware of that as you're testing. Okay, so we have the end-to-end process, and this is now something that is schedulable in the cloud. And I've just done one side of it, but hopefully that gives you the sense of what's needed. So where we're at basically is I have my end-to-end process. So it's schedulable because I've got the cloud flow happening at 5 or 6 o'clock. It's running the desktop flow. It's calling down from the cloud down to my machine. That runs the desktop steps, which open up a Chrome browser, go to the website, put the bad URLs in, hit the button and close, and then announce to Alexa. So I've basically got my end-to-end. And it works like a dream, to be quite honest. The other thing that I have is the notification. So you saw me put this step in at the end, and what this does is give me the notification on my phone that things have run properly. It's doing that. I'm not sure if you've ever used that action before, but that is using the Power Automate app on your phone. So I have that installed, and it's that's allowing the push notification. So better than an SMS service. There's no charges. I just have the Flow app installed, and that's what I get every time it runs. Right. Now, there is there is an interesting sort of story here. And I think the context for this is that this is a pay-for capability. It's premium. You saw that come up when I was picking the sort of desktop flow action in the cloud flow. And RPA is a premium capability. It's enterprise grade, essentially. This isn't the kind of thing that you would, in truth, use for home automation. This is designed for businesses. It's always paid for. And there are two elements to it. There's the licensing that you will need just for premium flow in any case. So you'll either license per user or per flow, right, which is the same as it ever is. The only thing of note really is that the plan is different. There is a special plan for RPA and using Power Automate Desktop. The UK pricing, and as the red box shows, there is no UK pricing page at the moment. So if you go looking for UK prices, you won't find a page. The best way to actually see it is in your admin portal. If you go and try and purchase licenses, then you can find it. But we're still waiting for Microsoft to update because they've made some pricing changes. Now, what you're seeing is you always need this. Right? You always need to license per user or per flow. You can have this optional bolt-on, which is expensive if you're looking at it, and this allows you to run unattended, right? So, there's something to talk about here. If you're in the fortunate situation where you're within an organization that's decided this is something really significant and you want to license at scale, there is an offer on pricing at the moment which makes it much cheaper. It's kind of down to a third of the normal price for more than 5,000 seats. I don't have many clients in that position at the moment that have established that they want this for this many people, but something to be aware of. So, we said there were two pieces. This, again, is perhaps a slide to take away. This is the table, if you like, of permutations that you could have for licensing. And really what it will come down to is, for you to license this is going to cost you at least £30 a month. Right? So it's not a home automation technology. I'm using it for fun and for learning, and because we're using it at Content and Cloud, and the more scenarios that we automate, the more things that we throw it at, the more we learn. But in truth, it's not really for home automation. This is designed for solving the business scenarios. And what you're seeing is there is a premium, certainly, to run unattended. This costs a lot of money. So what is this distinction between attended and unattended? The way to think about this is attended is there is somebody at the PC. Now in my situation, there always is, frankly, I'm always working at 5 o'clock and the Cloudflow will call down to my machine. It will fire up the browser, and occasionally distracts me because I'm just writing an email or a Teams message or something. But the expectation for attended is that there is somebody at the machine. Which reminds me, I was in the office the other day. We started going back to offices sort of 1 or 2 days a week. I was talking to my CEO. We were at my desk and we were just sort of a little way away from it. We were talking about a client or a project. And 5 o'clock must have ticked around because over here on my screen, the machine starts doing a load of things and there's a browser popping up and there's a form being filled out. And my CEO says, what the hell? I said, oh, it's my kid's Wi-Fi at home, the gaming's being unblocked. And he just couldn't believe it, and he was laughing his head off. It was like the best thing for your boss's boss to ever see, frankly. He thought that was fantastic that I'd done it. But attended expects the machine to be there and to be in use. Unattended is the opposite. So it will not work, in fact, if there is a session that's active. It expects the machine to be locked. But what this allows you to do is not just run it on one machine at one time. If you wanted 300 of these running at once, or a whole load of concurrency, because what you're doing is you're not messing around with Alexa and your kid's Wi-Fi settings. You're doing something true and real in the business scenario. Then you probably want this running at scale. Maybe the process is something long running. And in this case, what you might choose to do is actually have a virtual machine that this is running on. And that's where the desktop steps execute. And you can guarantee that it's locked because it's not Joan's machine in finance, or it's not your machine, it's somebody else's, it's a VM. And that's really the difference. So there is a premium, but this is where you get to high value scenarios. And if you think that what you're probably doing here is if you're in this territory, you are probably avoiding a big expensive development project that was 50K or 100K. And what you've managed to do is use this technology to sidestep a big complex project like that. And no surprise that Microsoft want you to pay for that. Okay, well, thank you very much. I suppose my key messages then, RPA can help you with many battles, both at home, but especially the key battles with your kids, as well as the workplace. Remember that Chrome is more reliable for now. I would sort of really cement that into your takeaways, if you like, because you will spend a long time trying to automate Edge if that's your default browser, and in the end, you'll just try Chrome as a one-off, just as an experiment, and all of a sudden everything magically works, and you're kicking yourself for spending the last week in trying to automate Edge. And then, understand the relationship between desktop flows and cloud flows. Bringing it to the cloud helps you schedule, automate, perhaps scale up, running a concurrent way, connect to other data sources, do all of the things that you can do with full Power Automate. The slides and demo videos are going to be at that URL, not just yet, but probably in the next day or two. So you can grab the slides, grab those reference things around pricing and licensing and some of the gotchas, and also see the videos as well. Thank you very much for your time. This is great fun talking to you. Hope you have a great day, and if there's any questions, I would love to answer them. Thank you. Thank you.